The poor girl begs for food to save her brother from starving. 11-year-old Lily stood in the freezing rain outside a grocery store at midnight, her hands shaking as she held a crumpled piece of cardboard that read, "Please help. My brother is dying." She had been standing there for 4 hours. Nobody stopped. But in 6 hours, one of them would regret walking past her. And what happened next would reveal the darkest truth about the world we live in. If you saw her that night, cold, desperate, and invisible, would you have stopped? Or would you have been like everyone else? Lily Morgan was 11 years old when she learned what it truly meant to be invisible. It was November 14th, a Tuesday night in Detroit, Michigan, and the temperature had dropped to 32 degrees. She stood outside Miller's Grocery on East Jefferson Avenue, her thin jacket soaked through from the rain, holding a sign she had made from a cardboard box she found in the alley behind their motel room. The sign was simple. Direct. Desperate. "Please help. My brother is dying." She wasn't exaggerating. 7-year-old Connor had been sick for 5 days. What started as a cough had turned into something much worse. He couldn't keep food down. His fever was so high that when Lily touched his forehead, it felt like touching a stove. He kept asking for water, but their motel room didn't have running water anymore. The manager had shut it off 3 days ago because Lily's mother hadn't paid rent in 2 months. Their mother. Lily's jaw clenched every time she thought about her. Rachel Morgan had left 4 days ago, saying she was going to meet someone who could help them. Someone who owed her money. She promised she'd be back by morning. That was 4 days ago. Lily had waited. She had believed. But by day 3, when Connor started coughing up blood, Lily realized the truth. Her mother wasn't coming back. So Lily did what she had to do. She left Connor wrapped in every blanket they owned, locked the motel room door, and walked 3 miles in the rain to the only place she knew would be open at night. Miller's Grocery. She had seen people coming and going from there at all hours. People with bags full of food. People who had money. People who could help. She stood near the entrance, not blocking the door, but close enough that people couldn't miss her. She held her sign up high and looked each person in the eye as they approached. "Excuse me," she would say, her voice barely audible over the rain. "My brother is really sick. Can you help us? Please?" The first man didn't even look at her. He walked right past, phone pressed to his ear, laughing at something the person on the other end said. The second was a woman with 2 children. She glanced at Lily, then quickly pulled her kids closer and hurried inside. The third was an older man who stopped, stared at Lily for a long moment, then shook his head and muttered something about lazy parents before walking away. After that, they all blurred together. 20 people. 30. 50. Some ignored her completely. Some gave her disgusted looks. One woman took a picture of her with her phone and laughed. 2 teenagers threw their empty soda cups at her. But nobody helped. Nobody stopped. Lily's legs were shaking. She couldn't feel her fingers anymore. The rain had soaked through her shoes, and every step sent a sharp pain up her legs. But she couldn't go back to Connor empty-handed. She couldn't watch him die. She had to keep trying. Around midnight, a man in a black coat walked out of the store carrying 2 heavy bags of groceries. Lily stepped forward, her voice cracking as she spoke. "Please, sir. My brother hasn't eaten in 3 days. He's really sick. If you could just spare something. Anything." The man stopped. For a moment, Lily thought he was going to help. He set one of his bags down and reached into his coat pocket. Lily's heart soared. But instead of pulling out food or money, he pulled out his phone. He took a picture of her. Then another. Then he picked up his bag and walked to his car. Lily stood there, frozen, watching him drive away. He didn't say a word. He just took pictures of her suffering like she was some kind of spectacle. Something to share online. Something to laugh at. That was the moment Lily felt it. The crushing weight of being completely and utterly alone. She sank down onto the wet pavement, her back against the cold brick wall, and let the tears come. She had tried. She had begged. She had humiliated herself in front of strangers. And it didn't matter. Nobody cared. But then, something changed. At 12:30 in the morning, a young woman walked out of the store. She was probably in her early 20s, wearing scrubs and a hospital badge that said Kennedy General. She looked exhausted. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. She walked right past Lily without looking at her, got into her car, and sat there for a long time with the engine off. Lily watched her through the rain. The woman was gripping the steering wheel so hard her knuckles were white. She was shaking. Then, slowly, the woman turned her head and looked directly at Lily. Their eyes met. And something in the woman's expression shifted. She turned off her car, got out, and walked back toward Lily. She crouched down so they were at eye level, and for the first time that night, someone looked at Lily like she was a real person. Not a problem. Not a nuisance. A person. Hey, the woman said softly. Her voice was gentle but firm. How long have you been out here? Lily's throat was so tight she could barely speak. 4 hours. The woman's eyes widened. 4 hours. In this rain. Lily nodded. My brother is sick. Really sick. I needed to find help. Nobody would stop. The woman's jaw tightened. She glanced back at the store, then back at Lily. Where's your brother now? At the motel. Room 24 at the East Side Inn. He's alone. I had to leave him. I didn't have a choice. The woman stood up. Come on. We're going to get him. Lily stared at her. What? You're not staying out here another second, the woman said firmly. And neither is your brother. Let's go. Before we go deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. The woman's name was Grace Parker, and she was a nurse at Kennedy General Hospital. She had just finished a 16-hour shift in the emergency room where she had lost 2 patients that night. One was a 7-year-old boy who had been brought in too late. His parents couldn't afford the medication he needed, and by the time they brought him to the hospital, there was nothing anyone could do. Grace had held that boy's hand as he died. She had cried in the supply closet afterward, unable to shake the feeling that she had failed him. When she saw Lily standing in the rain, holding that sign, she saw that boy's face. And she knew she couldn't walk away. Not this time. Grace drove Lily back to the East Side Inn, a rundown motel on the edge of the city where the room smelled like mold and the neon sign outside flickered every few seconds. Lily led her to room 24 and unlocked the door with a key tied to a piece of string around her neck. Inside, the room was dark and cold. Connor was lying on a bare mattress in the corner, his small body curled into a ball, shaking violently. Grace rushed to his side, her nurse instincts taking over immediately. She pressed her hand to his forehead and felt the searing heat of his fever. How long has he been like this? Grace asked, her voice tight with urgency. 5 days, Lily whispered. Maybe 6. I lost track. Grace pulled out her phone and called 911. She gave them the address and told them to send an ambulance immediately. Then she turned to Connor, speaking to him in a calm, soothing voice. Hey, buddy. My name is Grace. You're going to be okay. I promise. We're getting you help right now. Connor's eyes fluttered open. He looked at Grace, then at Lily. Emmy, he whispered, using the nickname he had called his sister since he was 2. I'm cold. I know, baby, Lily said, kneeling beside him. But you're going to be okay now. Grace is going to help us. The ambulance arrived within 10 minutes. The paramedics loaded Connor onto a stretcher and rushed him to Kennedy General. Grace rode with them, holding Connor's hand the entire way. Lily sat in the front seat of the ambulance, staring out the window, unable to process what was happening. For the first time in days, someone was helping them. Someone cared. At the hospital, the doctors worked quickly. Connor was severely dehydrated and malnourished. He had pneumonia. His body was shutting down. If Grace hadn't found him when she did, the doctor said, he wouldn't have made it through the night. Lily sat in the waiting room, her wet clothes clinging to her skin, her hands still shaking. Grace sat beside her, holding a cup of hot chocolate she had gotten from the vending machine. "Drink this," Grace said gently. "You're freezing." Lily took the cup, but she didn't drink. She just stared at it. "Why did you help us?" Lily asked quietly. "Nobody else did." Grace was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Because I've been where you are." Not exactly the same, but close enough. When I was 9, my mom left me and my little brother alone for 2 weeks. We ran out of food. I tried to steal from a grocery store and got caught. The owner called the police. I thought my life was over. But the officer who showed up didn't arrest me. He bought us groceries. He called child services. He saved us. And I promised myself that if I ever had the chance to do the same for someone else, I would. So here I am. Lily looked at Grace, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you." "You don't have to thank me," Grace said softly. "You're a kid. You shouldn't have been in this position in the first place." Over the next few hours, the full story came out. A social worker named Marcus Reynolds arrived at the hospital and sat down with Lily. He asked her questions gently, carefully, never pushing too hard. Lily told him everything. How their mother had been using drugs for years. How they had been evicted from their apartment 3 months ago. How they had been living in motels ever since, moving every few weeks when the money ran out. How their mother had started disappearing for days at a time. And how, 4 days ago, she had left and never come back. Marcus listened without interrupting. When Lily finished, he took a deep breath and said, "You did the right thing, Lily. You saved your brother's life." Lily shook her head. "I didn't do anything. I just stood outside a store for 4 hours while everyone ignored me." "You didn't give up," Marcus said firmly. "That's everything." Connor spent 3 days in the hospital. By the time he was discharged, his fever had broken, his lungs were clear, and he was eating solid food again. But the question remained, what would happen to them now? Their mother had been located. She was arrested on outstanding warrants and was facing charges of child neglect and abandonment. She would not be getting custody of her children again. Marcus explained to Lily and Connor that they would be placed in foster care. He promised to do everything he could to keep them together, but he couldn't guarantee it. The system was overwhelmed, and finding a placement for 2 kids at once was difficult. Lily's heart sank. She had fought so hard to keep Connor alive. The thought of losing him now, of being separated after everything they had been through, was unbearable. But then Grace stepped in. She pulled Marcus aside and had a long conversation with him. Lily couldn't hear what they were saying, but she saw the way Marcus's expression changed from skeptical to surprised to something that looked like hope. The next day, Grace sat down with Lily and Connor in the hospital room. "I want to foster you," Grace said. "Both of you. If you'll let me." Lily stared at her in shock. "What? Why?" "Because you deserve a chance," Grace said simply. "Because Connor deserves to grow up healthy and safe. Because I have the space, the resources, and the desire to help. And because I see so much of myself in you, Lily. You're a fighter. You're strong. And you deserve someone in your corner." Connor looked at Lily, his eyes wide. "Can we stay with her, Emmy?" Lily looked at Grace. She thought about the woman who had stopped when no one else would. The woman who had driven through the rain to help a stranger. The woman who had stayed by Connor's side in the hospital. The woman who was offering them something Lily had stopped believing existed. A home. Yes, Lily whispered. We can stay. The fostering process moved quickly. Grace had been a licensed foster parent for 2 years, though she had never taken in children before. She had always wanted to, but the timing had never felt right. Until now. Within 2 weeks, Lily and Connor moved into Grace's small but cozy apartment in a quiet neighborhood on the north side of the city. They each had their own bed, their own blankets, their own space. Things Lily had almost forgotten existed. Grace set up a routine. Breakfast at 7. School at 8. Homework after school. Dinner together every night. Movie nights on Fridays. It was simple. Normal. And for the first time in years, Lily felt like a kid again. But it wasn't easy. Lily had nightmares. She would wake up in the middle of the night, panicking, thinking she was back in that motel room, thinking Connor was dying, thinking she had failed. Grace would hear her and come sit on the edge of her bed, rubbing her back, reminding her that she was safe. That Connor was safe. That it was over. Connor struggled too. He was terrified of being left alone. He wouldn't let Lily out of his sight for the first few weeks. He clung to her constantly, afraid that if she left, she wouldn't come back. Grace was patient. She never pushed. She never forced. She just showed up, day after day, proving to them that she wasn't going anywhere. 6 months later, Grace officially adopted Lily and Connor. The judge signed the papers, and they became the Parker family. Grace had tears streaming down her face as she hugged them both in the courtroom. You're mine now, she whispered. And I'm never letting you go. Lily held onto her tightly, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Safety. Belonging. Love. 3 years later, Lily was 14 years old. She was an honor roll student at her high school, a member of the debate team, and a volunteer at the local food bank. Connor was 10, healthy and thriving, playing soccer and making friends. They still had hard days. Lily still had moments where the trauma of what they had been through came rushing back. But they had Grace. And they had each other. One evening, Grace sat Lily down and told her something important. I want you to know that what you did that night outside the grocery store, that was the bravest thing I've ever seen. Lily shook her head. I was just trying to survive. Exactly, Grace said. You were 11 years old, and you fought for your brother's life when the entire world turned its back on you. That's not just survival. That's courage. Don't ever forget that. Lily looked down at her hands. I just wish someone had stopped sooner. I know, Grace said softly. And I wish I had been there earlier. But I'm here now. And I'm not going anywhere. When Lily was 16, she decided to share her story. She stood in front of her entire school during an assembly and told them everything. The hunger. The fear. The night she stood in the rain begging for help. The people who walked past her like she didn't exist. And the one person who stopped. I'm telling you this, Lily said, her voice steady and strong, because I want you to understand something. We pass people every single day who are struggling. People who are hungry. People who are scared. People who need help. And most of the time, we don't stop. We tell ourselves it's not our problem. That someone else will help. But what if no one does? What if you were the only chance they had? After the assembly, dozens of students came up to Lily. Some thanked her for sharing. Some cried. Some told her their own stories of struggle and survival. One girl, a freshman named Mia, approached her quietly. My mom left us last month, Mia whispered, tears in her eyes. I've been taking care of my little sister by myself. I don't know what to do. Lily took her hand. Come with me. I know someone who can help. Lily introduced Mia to Grace, who immediately connected her with social services and made sure she and her sister got the support they needed. And that was just the beginning. Over the next 2 years, Lily started a nonprofit organization called The Last Stop. It was a resource center for kids in crisis. Kids who were homeless. Kids who were hungry. Kids who had been abandoned. Kids like her. She partnered with local businesses, schools, and hospitals to provide food, clothing, medical care, and emotional support. Grace helped her every step of the way, using her connections at the hospital to bring in doctors and nurses who volunteered their time. Connor helped too. He organized donation drives at his school and spent his weekends handing out care packages to kids living on the streets. By the time Lily graduated high school, The Last Stop had helped over 200 kids. Some found foster homes. Some reconnected with family members. Some just needed a meal and someone to talk to. But every single one of them left knowing that someone cared. That they weren't invisible. On Lily's 18th birthday, Grace threw her a small party. Just the three of them, pizza and cake, exactly the way Lily wanted it. As they sat around the table, Grace handed Lily a small wrapped box. "Open it," Grace said with a smile. Lily unwrapped it and found a framed photo inside. It was a picture of the three of them taken the day the adoption was finalized. They were all smiling, holding each other tightly. But underneath the photo, Grace had written something. "You saved him. And you saved me too. Love, Mom." Lily stared at the words, tears streaming down her face. She looked up at Grace, unable to speak. Grace reached across the table and took her hand. "I mean it, Lily. You think I saved you that night, but the truth is, you saved me. I was drowning in guilt and grief. I had lost hope. But when I saw you standing in that rain, refusing to give up, fighting for someone you loved, you reminded me why I became a nurse in the first place. To help people. To make a difference. You gave me purpose again." Lily wiped her tears and smiled. "We saved each other." Grace nodded. "Yeah. We did." Connor raised his glass of soda. "To family," he said. "To family," Lily and Grace echoed. And they clinked their glasses together, three people who had been broken and lost, now whole and found. So here's the question for you. If you had walked past Lily that night, cold and desperate, begging for help to save her brother, would you have stopped? Or would you have been like the 50 people who ignored her? And if you were in Lily's position, 11 years old, alone, and terrified, watching your little brother die, what would you have done? Think about it. Because right now, somewhere in your city, there's a child like Lily. A child who's hungry. A child who's scared. A child who's begging for someone to care. And maybe, just maybe, that someone could be you. What would you do if you saw a child like Lily tonight? Would you stop? Or would you walk past? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And if this story moved you, please share it. Because stories like this need to be heard. These children need to be seen. And together, we can make sure no child ever has to beg in the rain while the world looks the other way. Thank you for watching.